EV technology has matured, the business models have also become increasingly complex. They have to accommodate for the demands of developing electric infrastructure and also user demands. And our next panel, we would like to take a closer look at the different business approaches for the electric mobility of the future. Are we ready? So panelists, are you ready? Come join me up on the stage. Let's go. So now I get to introduce each of you individually. Again, in no particular order. We have, oh my goodness, the head of the National Center for Charging Infrastructure, Johannes Pallasch.
Good morning.
Hello. Well, yeah, everybody's here. We've got the CEO of Ubitricity, Daniel Kunkel.
Thanks for having me.
That's you. Then we have the CEO of Digital Charging Solutions, Jörg Reimann.
Good morning, guys.
And last but definitely not least, we've got the head of Regulation, Market Communication and Mobility Department at the German Association of Energy and Water Industries, Dr. Jan Strobel. Hello.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Okay. So I think everybody here is aware to get into the EV charging business doesn't necessarily mean that you have to build an EV charging station. So maybe we can start just by getting an overview of some of the different opportunities for getting involved in the charging business. Like, what exactly are we talking about? So who would like to give us a bit of an overview?
Talking about CPOs.
Charge point operator.
Yeah. Okay, from our point of view, there are two cases. So the first one is to build up and install and operate the stations. This is the core business, and well, with a break even 8-15 years. And the other business is just operate semi-public stations for other people, for example. And yeah, this is a business case, and it's just about selling energy with a good price for the customer.
And a very interesting part of the entire game is the customer perspective to it. So from a customer perspective, yes, there is price that might be relevant, and there's availability of the charging infrastructure. These are the easiest one that come up to your mind, but then it's about searching, finding, reservation, queuing, green energy. So you see a lot of topic that hopefully you will touch in this discussion. So, and hopefully always circling back to what are the customer needs and where are the real customer pain points.
Yes, I would like to join that discussion. As a BDEW, we are representing more than 80% of the public charging infrastructure as well as the MSPs. And so from our perspective, when we're talking about e-mobility, it's not about talking or selling energy or building infrastructure, it's more an ecosystem where different services are participating in, and providing a charge or a hub is something like a service. It's like a hotel business, and providing charging or searching services as well. So I think we get the whole thing wrong if we just talk about infrastructure and if we talk about selling energy.
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of views on what it is, and I think the customer is actually looking for a way to charge his EV car, her EV car going forward. And I think that's what it is about. And I think the customer may have multiple use cases for that. Whether it starts home, because that's a new opportunity to charge, where energy is available. Whether it's in urban cities, where they are in public parking spaces, or whether it's on the go. Because unlike fueling your car with petrol, this scenario with EV takes a bit longer. And I think we're all here because we are passionate about this. We want to make it faster, we want to make it more efficient, but I think that provides plenty of opportunities. And indeed, it provides also plenty of opportunities to provide services to the customers that are relevant.
Okay, so then how can we assess the market, and how can this help in choosing the right type of EV charging business model?
Well, I think the traditional perspective of assessing the market, how it develops, is just counting charge points. I mean, this is as clever as counting the coins that you have in your wallet. So this is the first learning. You have to count the value, not only the charge points. Sorry for normal chargers, but it's really that, which doesn't mean that we do not need normal charging. As you said, we need it, or people want to charge on the road where they're going at home, workplace, and so on. So, but the traditional perspective, count charge points, what we have to do actually for assessing the development is understanding the installed capacity, which doubled over the last years. It's impressive. And the second thing that we actually have to look at, it's very funny. Everybody's talking about the customer perspective, as Jörg did, and as we always hear from other market participants or authorities. But I'm still wondering who's asking the real customer. We did so, and what's interesting, the study will come out this week. And what's very interesting is to see a very positive trend. So I think when we talk about charging markets, we also have to ask the customer what they really think.
And maybe to add on that, so you were addressing business models. So business model is something, at least how I learned it, that can run on its own, and people can make money, and people are getting happy, customers are getting satisfied. So, and this is what has to happen in our industry, that this runs on a sustainable level. Yes, there's a strong need of infrastructure, and infrastructure doesn't fall from the sky. And yes, the CPO market is not the market with the biggest margins, as we all know. So therefore, a push into the market, and therefore also external help, let's say from a governmental regulatory side, definitely might be needed. But then it's about creating opportunities for developing new services and new opportunities for the customer. Have the customer then to choose what service to select. So, and this is, all the services are around finding a charging infrastructure, about paying. These are the services that really contribute to the value, because charging is not fueling. As we hopefully all agree here, it's much more closer to the telco industry, and therefore basic logic that work in that industry also have to be applied in ours. Johannes, I think you want to answer on that, right?
Yeah. So the question is there a business case for charging? And we have to, the answer is not so simple, because we have a business case for high power charging in a lot of cases with stations where there's a lot of traffic. But also we have the need for all the street chargers who need also slow charging. And what I see is that we have not enough business cases in this use case, and we have to talk about this. Where's it coming from? Is the money coming from for these business? And it's not just high power charging. So we have to complete the whole ecosystem of charging. And yeah, what we need in the next years is a lot of money, of course, for these business cases who wouldn't be able without funding or financing. And the thing is, talking about high power charging, we think a lot of stations work. Kamener Kreuz, for example, all people here in Germany know this case. It works because there's a lot of traffic. But we have also stations within the system, well, with seasonal effects, for example, going to the Alps or other regions with tourism. There we need probably another kind of business case. We have to add the market activities with tenders and funding.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think we have to take a bit more differentiated look on that. What's not true is saying that in high power charging there's no business case. I think the market development contradicts that. There's so many companies really investing a lot of money in that, also privately, not only state funded, primarily privately. So we have a huge move towards APC charging. What's more difficult actually is normal charging due to regulation. I mean, everybody going around here, and you know that if you have a normal charger, it will be very fun to install a pin pad on that, at least for some versions that we have out there. So this makes it more expensive, and I think it's more clever to take a closer look what's really going on normal charging, how we could, how is the regulation really the right surrounding for this case of charging. The second thing, seasonal peaks, it's actually quite funny because we have 700,000 electric cars in Germany, and we are talking about 50 million in 2030. So if we have a seasonal peak this year, it's not a seasonal peak next year. And a seasonal peak this year actually is a stimulus for the charge point operator to enhance his park. And seasonal peaks, we can talk about it if the market is totally settled, and then we see, oh, we have our 15, 40 million cars in Germany, and now we have seasonal peaks. How can we deal with that? But so far, peaks are only a stimulus to further enhance the capacity.
So peaks would mean, from a customer perspective, in a bad way, queuing. It means queuing. If I have these peaks, I go to my vacation and I have queuing. So I think we need a plan to, how we can define the demand on charging for these stations with seasonal effects. So, but what I say is not each station in Germany has a seasonal effect. This is an adding issue. We have to solve it. So what we do, we need the market activities, and we have to add all these gaps we have, and we have to solve these gaps with tenders. And I think it's not so bad to do both. So only market activities wouldn't bring a holistic approach.
Well, it's quite clear, Johannes, you know that I don't agree with that, but because actually the government doesn't make it faster, better, and bigger. That's the usual experience that we have. I mean, Deutschlandnetz should be here in 2023, and we know how far you are with the contracts. But that's not the point. The point is the seasonal peak. It's very funny. Yesterday I talked with Stefan Möller. I think some of you know him. And he's very close to the market as head of Next Move. And he told me that, you know, last year we really had customer complaints about queuing in 2021. This year we hadn't. Yeah, and we also know that some of our members made queuing management because they knew, okay, capacity will be a bit limited here, but we have to find intelligent solutions for that. I think this is what we have to think about, because the point that the state really figured out, oh, here there isn't enough capacity, and that they made a tender for it. I'm sorry, the market development is much too fast for that.
Some commentary, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for, I think, the clarification on some of the challenges that we are facing when it comes to regulation, usually well-intended, not always well implemented. And I think the payment terminal is a great opportunity for us to collaborate and hopefully to see what the after brings. Yeah, but I think it could be indeed a burden that finally, and I always go back to customers, will need to be paid by someone. That use case need to be paid, whether it's tax funded, which finally is paid by a consumer, or paid by the consumer directly, no matter. So I think we need to be careful of trying not to regulate too early before going toward use. And I couldn't agree more that the charge count is probably not necessarily what it means, but I think it illustrates nicely that we probably need much more infrastructure to charge all the cars and all the need of tomorrow. Whether we like it or not, we see that we have a tremendous ramp up when it comes to cars, and people asking themselves, where do I charge my car tomorrow? And they likely to want to have choice. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm in a position to say what is the perfect and excellent location. What I think I can anticipate is it will need choice for consumer. Choice on the go when it comes to high power charging, which is usually very difficult to implement. Large lead times, lots of energy demand required to make this work. So it's not the investment of putting a charger into the ground and being happy. I think it takes much more, and we all need to acknowledge that. At the same time, there are customers that are taking the opportunity of home charging. We see that. That works very well. In Berlin, not everyone is privileged of having its own parking lot. And therefore, I think grid-friendly solutions will also be needed, yeah, because also from a grid capacity point of view, yeah, how many street furniture do we want to see in Berlin? Yeah? We want to make this a cleaner, a better city. And I think that's why what we have all in common, that's why we got here, right? Because we want this energy transition to work. And I think that unites us. And that is a great opportunity for us to think about what is actually the opportunity to provide sustainable EV solutions in an existing network. And the city is an existing network. And now we can say, oh, do we create more installation construction sites? Or do we use the existing infrastructure? And lamppost is probably a good case where you can use existing infrastructure. And even if you decide in 5 years from here to say, actually, I want to have a cycling path, you simply take it out and put it into the next lamping charging solution. So I think there is a need for DC, there's a need for AC, and I think it requires all of us to make it work. So I'm inviting everyone in this room, to help us to grow this, to learn every day. I'm not in a position to say that we know everything, but we are absolutely passionate at Ubitricity to make this work and to grow it. And if we can take a role in that jigsaw of solutions, we are very happy to do so.
Okay, see a lot of comments.
Thank you. So nice dynamic the discussion is taking here. I'd like still to give it a bit of different spin adding to that. So yes, it might seem to be quite a German discussion, by the way, here. But Germany, when I look at my statistics, and Germany is the biggest and most relevant market. So, and it is a big market, and therefore, yes, there is a need for additional push into infrastructure, because we are not the Netherlands, we're not Norway. Norway has also some such challenges, but Germany and AC charging definitely, I think there is a special role that government can take and regulators are expected to take. Now the question is it only focusing on infrastructure or everything that comes around? So I would like to discuss also about what about pricing? What about potential price caps that are absolutely killing many business models? And what about payment methods? So why is there a need to have a special idea, even a regulation set up on a German or pan-European base on pushing old and analog payment methods into the market, where at least from our side, coming from a customer perspective, it's hard that we see the need for it, and we see, again, investments that rather should go into infrastructure, going into other directions, going into terminals, etc., where the entire industry is asking, okay, is that the right investment? Are the right business models incentivized? And is that the right investment of tax money when the entire industry needs, I think, more freedom, more flexibility to come up with their own business model and to have them flourish?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to take up this point of what you asked in the beginning, how do we understand the market? How do we assess it? And yes, you're both right that we need a lot of infrastructure, and you're both right that you can't really, pinpoint on the table where charging infrastructure should be located and what capacity it should have and so on. And I think the crucial point is what you said, Jörg. I mean, Germany, we want to be a lead market for e-mobility. And Germany actually is a lead market for e-mobility in Europe. Yeah, we have to be aware of that. And I think this is also one of the great things that the Hubcheck team here with the Intercharge also makes clear, because you are all business participants in this market and you want to participate in this market, you want to sell your products, you want to provide services. And this is a clear sign for where the market stands in Germany. Yeah, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of competition, and this is also a good basis for competing business models. And this is a good basis for providing a good infrastructure and good services for the customers. And it's a lot faster and it's a lot wiser than the state ever could be.
Johannes, you want to
Johannes, come on.
First of all, I want to react on something Jan said before. So, as you can see, we do not agree about a planning approach. So the question is, do the state need a plan when we are talking about charging infrastructure and the ramp up of charging infrastructure?
I think the state needs an understanding.
We need a plan, but that means that faster and in the first place, building up infrastructure by private investment is the best thing we have. But in this system, we think if there are gaps, we have to close them. If there are no gaps, we have no problems. Then everything is fine, but we need an instrument to react on gaps. So that is what we will do in the future, what we do now with the German Deutschlandnetz. And well, it's not the fastest thing, as you say, but I think it's very important. And I want to give you another example. Talking about neighborhoods, we need a planning approach. We have to know what do we need. Talking about normal charging, how many charging points do we need in my neighborhood up to 2030? We need a plan and a tool. So talking about public charging, it's not so bad to have this idea and this method. Okay, and there was also a question about ad hoc charging now and all the system. If EMP charging is the better product than ad hoc charging, no one has to be afraid from a customer perspective. If EMP charging is better, then the people will use it. I personally use an EMP product. But I think we also need competition on the charging infrastructure between ad hoc charging and EMP charging. So, and it's also the question about transaction costs behind these products.
You were shaking your head, and then we'll have a comment from you.
Yeah, I just want to take up this aspect with the plan. I think you need an understanding of the market, how is it developing, so that you have a good feeling if we're going in the right direction or not. Your approach of having a plan, identifying gaps and filling it with tenders, I think it won't be sufficient and it won't work because the market is a lot faster. I think Deutschland is a very good example for that. I mean, you figured out these 900 search areas last year. This year, 35% of these search areas are already there. You have APC charges in them. Yeah. So you see the speed, how the market is developing, and there's, well, we know the status of the Deutschlandnetz. So I think when you figured out that there's a gap, maybe this data will be 1 year old, yeah, and not sufficient for really having a gap there. So what we really need is the right framework for the market to deliver. And you can fund maybe the grid connection, maybe this will be good for AC as well, if you have a whole street that you want to electrify. What we need actually are the sites. There are a lot of public sites where you potentially could build, and what we need is an acceleration in the allowances by the local authorities, but they do not need a plan. They should provide the sites. They should open up the streets for e-mobility. That's the point.
Yeah, just one last comment. The good news is, while we are very focused on Germany here, some of us have already experiences and had the chance to have broader experiences even in other countries. So we are with more than 5,500 charge points in the UK present, and therefore I would agree, customer choice is of essence. Whether it comes to payment, yeah, there are customers that prefer our direct access solution. There are customers that prefer our MSP. It's on them. And I think that's very important to keep in mind when you grow that. And I think that helps also us with the commercialization. Why do we have 5,500, a network of 5,500? Because there's a demand that weren't 5,500 a year ago. Actually, December last year, we had 4,400. And then, due to the demand, the customer appreciation, actually, there comes the desire to add more and more of these solutions. So I think I have a lot of trust in customers to decide what they need and to help us to really understand what is relevant and not. And this solution seems to be relevant, yeah. And we will have and will have in future also EV chargers that we will probably position in locations where we then rethink whether that was a good idea, because the customer demand may not be there, and then we change it. And I think, therefore, whatever solution we bring in, this cost of change and living in a very dynamic ecosystem should be always at the forefront of our thinking.
So it's clear that the EV market is very complex. Can charging-related business models actually help to reduce the complexity of the market in some way? And if yes, then how?
Yeah, I think complexity, when we put ourselves into the customer shoes, is one of the core challenges. Okay, that's different infrastructure, different connectors, different brands, different everything, different pricing, whatever. And therefore, we're a strong believer. Yes, that's what our business model is built on. That aggregating that and taking out a lot of this complexity for the customer is key to the way to success. That's not only having an access, like with our service, basically nearly 100% of the infrastructure in all Europe. It's also that depending on the service you have, even with one stable price everywhere. So, and again, here the peace of mind, having to know that you can access and you know exactly what you pay for it. At least from a customer's perspective, is such a strong driver to our business model that I doubt whether more transparency, for at least for a big part of the customer, is the argument at the end. The market will show it. So because transparency is something we are also driving. But transparency on your mobile device that shows you where to charge and what service to expect and what different price point you have. There you can choose whether you want to have the ad hoc price on site or whether you want to have the average price. We're pretty confident that taking out a lot of this complexity is, at the end of the day, what is probably one of the core issues to reach a tipping point in that industry, that not only buying an EV but also driving the EV is much easier than you have it today in the ICE business, and therefore the investment into that area are crucial, are paramount, especially for those services that allow you to search, find, pay, reserve, queue, whatever we address. It's again how the entire customer experience around the charging session itself. That needs to be managed. And for this, it's about big data. It's about managing the complexity in one service. This is what, at the end of the day, will make the difference between success or failure in that industry.
Yeah, actually, I don't really buy this complexity argument, because it's also sometimes a selling argument. And I think our whole life is complex, yeah? And what is crucial is that you are able to buy the right service. And as Jörg said, e-mobility, if you have the right MSP, if you cover all charge points all over Germany with the same price, it's a lot less complex for the user than the current fueling system is, yeah? Because there you never know what the price will be at the fueling station. So I don't really buy that. I mean, complexity, of course, it's a topic for the companies, yeah? Because when they further develop the business, it's always something they have to take into account. But it's a digital business where you have to find clever solutions, and you need to be able to scale that up. And I think this is also, if you look at the market, the development of the market, this is the place where we are just now. Customer satisfaction is rising over the time, which is a clear sign for the complexity of the beginning. And we all remember this very nice chargers where you couldn't read the display, or where something was going wrong. I mean, this is something like history. The new stuff installed is a lot better. The services used are a lot better. So I don't really buy that argument.
Johannes, yeah?
I think the business model for CPOs isn't that complex, because it's a heavy asset business, and we think in the long term. And I think the complexity is on the other side, on the EMP products, and there's a lot of innovation, as we can see here in this round. And well, and then it's getting more complex if both roles are getting together. If the CPO is also EMP, then it's getting complex, but I think it's not too hard to solve this. But on another level, it's not the business case, it's all the standards and all things like Eichrecht, for example, or gateways that are coming soon. The technical level, this is harder, I think, for the people to solve than now the business cases with a long-term perspective. And well, what we want is that all the CPOs earn in the future money. But the problem is, for example, we have like a funding instrument like THG quota. And it's not reliable because, well, I'm getting a lot of money today for each sold kilowatt hour. But I don't know what's happening with this instrument in 5 years. And so it's hard to get this into my business case. And what we need is long-time guidelines for the market.
Well, if I may react, thank you, Johannes, for reminding us on one thing, which is adding complexity. Actually, the business for a CPO is quite simple. The CPO is looking for a site. He's evaluating it, how much traffic will be there, yeah, and what kind of customers could I count with, how much time do I want to stay there, or how long do they want to stay there, and what's the right charging offer that could, what's the right infrastructure here. It's like the hotel business, yeah. 300 or 500 rooms, do I want to provide 5 stars or 3 stars charging? So this is quite easy. The complexity that you mentioned, it's complexity by regulation, yeah. And so maybe it's a bit more looking for what is the state doing, what's the government doing regarding complexity. Because if you change our business models, and I think this was something that Jörg also want to come to when he started to discuss ad hoc charging. If you change the conditions for the business models in the market, this makes it complex. That's true. We agree.
Yeah, of course. So talking about ad hoc charging, it would be better to, well, it's coming now. And it would be better to do this in 2015 probably, but I think it's necessary. So I think it's okay. But now we have to define infrastructure that we can scale up. So yeah, well, we have to add this thing, ad hoc charging, to the technical requirements. So I want to mention another thing. So what we need for all the business cases is we have to talk about what is stopping our business, well, not on a money level, on the regulation level. So this is about what the master plan now is dealing about. So the master plan of the German government has a lot of measures who address problems within the system. So, and I think this is very important that the system is more efficient and that the rollout can be a little bit more faster than it's today, and we can scale up very fast. So,
Jörg?
Question, Johannes, why do you have to define an old technology for ad hoc charging? So ad hoc charging, if the customer wants it, all good. But why do you have to regulate, and where do you have to push a market into an old analog technology like card readers, etc.? So that's what I do not get, because with the current technology, ad hoc charging is also feasible. And if other countries, more advanced countries, especially when it comes to digital business, like again the Dutch market, for instance, they will make fun out of us because they see us investing in technology that all the other markets try to forget. So again, why do we need a technology push into an old technology to ensure that ad hoc charging works?
I don't understand why it's old. So, well, I learned during Corona, using my mobile phone, I hold it in front of the supermarket cash and then I can pay. It works. It's not a fax sent to the CPO. I think it's, well, it's from a technological base. It's not the idea that I have an old technology and I can also implement this in the car if I want. It's possible. Why don't we talk about plug and charge with credit card? It's so easy. It would bring two things together, would work. We have a system talking about credit cards. It works worldwide and European-wide. So we can use this also. So what I think there's competition now between ad hoc charging and the system based on credit cards, and on the other side, EMP products based on, well, roaming and other things.
Well, actually, I didn't want to do that, but when you mentioned the master plan and what its additional what added value for the market development, I mean, well, we do not know what you took up from the stakeholder consultations, yeah, to put that clearly, but we had a very intensive discussion with our members, and as I said, 80% of charge point operators, 80% of EMSPs. And actually, well, the market participants are a bit disappointed, yeah, to be honest, because what would really push the market in it was already promised in 2019. Yeah, it was promised in 2019 to provide the sites from the state. Yeah, it was mentioned that the allowances should be should be easier. Actually, the contrary is the case. And the added regulation that we see, potential added regulation that we see in the master plan adds additional complexity. Yeah. So we would think that it would make sense just if we want to really support the market, we would have to think it through one more time. Our fear is that what is thought there is not ahead of the market but behind it.
Well, I don't really understand the thesis that we don't give now space or sites to the industry. This is part of the master plan.
It was promised in 2019. I mean, how should we believe that you changed?
Yeah, but you say you missed this in the master plan. This is a different thing that we wasn't successful in the last years, but it's now in the master plan. It's part of it.
Again.
Yeah, but it is in the master plan. So, other thing, also that funding, for example, good issue, it's too complex.
Yes.
Yeah, we agree about this. We have to change this system of funding CPOs. But it's part of the master plan. So.
Okay, we have about 16 minutes left of the panel. I actually would like to open it up already to our participant questions, because I suspect after this very interesting and heated discussion that our participants would also like to get in on the conversation. So can we pull up the questions being sent in from the audience? So Livio writes, how can you build a profitable business model in less densely populated areas where lower utilization rates lead to a weak commercial case and to avoid recharging deserts?
I think Johannes is happy about that question, but maybe you should...
It's not for me, it's Ms. Caputo or Mr.
I mean, you have an answer, I have an answer too, but please start.
As you know, we think that for this case we need a plan and also a funding or financing model, because otherwise we would have these gaps in the system. But you also know that Jan has another opinion on this issue, so your turn.
Sorry, Johannes, it's not my opinion, but I mean, we have judgment operators being active in Germany, and they are active all over Germany. Yeah? And their approach is to provide a network all over Germany for the customers. So, and there are quite many. Yeah? At least I know 5 of them. So, and we also made an analysis of the deployment of the APC infrastructure, and it's quite good regarding all over Germany so far, and it's steadily increasing. So, yeah, it's part of the business model for CPOs.
Any other thoughts from our other panelists, or shall we take a look at the next question? All right, let's do that. Okay, let's have a look at another question. That is from David, specifically for Jan. Is the study regarding customer interest publicly available?
On Thursday.
Okay, mark your calendar. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. From Leon, he asks, is smart charging and bidirectional loading going to change the way business models are built around charging?
Yes.
Yes. But it's your crystal ball, my crystal ball, in which direction? But definitely it adds another interesting component to the business models in the future, definitely.
I think for CPOs, I mean, normally we talk about bidirectional charging for private charging at home. I think it will be interesting if CPOs think it's a nice additional service to EMSPs. So we will see.
Yes.
Should we ask how?
I would suggest that with bidirectional charging, you have a far closer integration of the customer into the whole energy management event. And I think that will change also the involvement. And with the involvement, it's likely to see that this is going. I don't know how it's going to change. I think that's probably a bit further out, but I would also want to agree that we are looking into that as an opportunity for our customers, because we do believe it's going to be needed from an energy management standpoint, but it may also provide opportunities from a consumer standpoint.
Thank you very much. Another thought?
Yeah, and from a governmental perspective, we need very soon framework, a regulation framework, that we can start with these innovations, and then we can see what kind of pricing we will get for the customers. But I think there's a lot of innovation in this topic.
Maybe to briefly add to that, there's lots of innovation potential, definitely. And in that area, when it comes to standardization, about data, I think that's a point the entire industry is discussing. So yes, this is a super interesting field ahead. But for many of the players in the business, it will most likely come late when it comes to saving business models. So the industry has to stabilize, and when it comes to infrastructure and customer added values, before this segment will really become relevant to the market, because there's so many open issues that still have to be answered. There's a big confidence, I think, also here in the crowd, and when I listened to today and yesterday's presentations, everyone is talking about that. That's a good sign. It is coming. It's not a weird idea anymore. But there are so many challenges ahead of us that have to be tackled before this becomes really reality. So it's great to have it in the view, but let's not fall into the trap to just wait for that to happen, because it's also, to me, it's not clear of who are the players and how many of the players in the value chain will really take advantage out of that innovation.
I think actually bidirectional charging is a very interesting case for this question of how the overall ecosystem of e-mobility is evolving, because for making it real, we need all players in the value chain acting together. And it's not only about charging at home, and it's not about grid operators, it's also about the access to the car. Are you allowed to sell the flexibility of the car and so on? So I think this will be more interesting, how we can solve the competitive issues. Actually, this is a framework topic, yeah. The competitive issues around that, and with regard to the marketplace, I mean, some are here. I also saw Markus yesterday, and I think, yeah, I mean, it's already in the market, to be honest, yeah, for fleets. So.
Okay, let's take a look at our next question. From Maren, she writes, which necessary changes do you foresee when transferring German business models to other markets also outside of Europe? Considering all local requirements, how realistic is international scaling of one model? Would you like to tackle that one?
Yeah. We could now say that the UK is outside of Europe, right? But probably that's not what was intended with the question. And indeed, I think there are lots of challenges when we talk about local adaptation, indeed. And they are also true for UK versus Germany versus France, where we're operating. And they are even bigger when we talk about markets like China or the US. What I think there is given is there is, especially as many of these elements are working on a digital platform, there's a lot of adaptation doable on that end, which you can almost take when you manage parts of the ecosystem and implement them in other markets. When it comes to elements that are on the ground, yeah, when it comes to invoicing, billing, fiscal adaptation, hardware, the world is far more complex and diverse as the customers are.
Well, I think I wouldn't talk about the German business model. It's a European one, and I don't know who mentioned it before. I mean, we have CPOs being active all over Europe. We have EMPs active all over Europe, and what we shouldn't forget is that the business model is working the same way all over Europe. I mean, that's the main point. What is interesting about Germany is the amount of CPOs, EMPs, and other service companies being active here. And so when we talk about bidirectional charging, for example, if you could export that, but otherwise I wouldn't talk about a German business model, it's a European market.
Yeah. Europe is a very special animal because Europe is super fragmented. So for our service, so covering entire Europe with one service, which we offer our customers, we need partnerships with now 1,000 and something CPOs and counting, 1 and 3 zeros, so around 1,000 partners. So this just described that complexity you hardly find in any other area of the world. From a customer's perspective, the customer need is the same as in China. In China, as maybe you listened to the presentation from StarCharge yesterday, numbers are always super impressive when it comes to China. All numbers are bigger. But the question, or the answer on the question, what do you don't understand from Europe and where do you think the direction is going, something like that, was it? Then the answer was, okay, make everything as easy as possible, go most innovative, especially in terms of payment. And yes, complete astonishment why we talk about credit card payments at charging infrastructure. Again, because yes, China is always ahead and is always faster. But the end game is the same, because the customer, when it comes to charging requirements, are probably pretty identical in all areas of the world.
Okay, let's take a look at...
Can I add one?
Oh yeah, sure.
To this credit card, sorry,
No worries.
it's a bit old. I mean, it will take place because government said so, but in the Netherlands, they are laughing about us. And they say, we need to be happy because it's a credit card terminal. It could be for coins. It's from Germany.
Okay, let's have a look at the next question. From Jakob, he writes, also a question for Jan. How do you study and adapt to a very fast-changing market? You said the recognition of a gap and filling it with tenders might not be enough, so what strategy do you suggest?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to have an understanding of the market, how it really works. And I think this is one of the most interesting questions, because in Germany we only have 1.5% really EV drivers that really understand how this market works. And this is always a problem that I think we all need to take care of, that we have to, well, explain how this market works. So for all the other ones who don't know it and who tackle it from an internal combustion engine driver perspective, I think that's a problem for you as well. And I think we have to tackle that in common. Otherwise, well, I think the longer you, well, the longer the development takes. I mean, if you just take a look on the last 4 years, the development was huge. I mean, for 4 years, what did we discuss about? We had 50 kilowatt chargers. Yeah. Now we have, well, I'm sorry for Ionity. I know you already had some 4 years ago, but nowadays 150, 300 is standard. Yeah, fast chargers. And now we have high power charging. We talked about the 10 RFID cards that we need to get all over Germany. Now we have one contract. We talked about that the prices were session fees. Nowadays we have kilowatt hour based tariffs. So I think first of all what we need is a real understanding of the dynamic of this market, how it really moves fast forward. Second thing, facts. I mean, we have to collect facts about it. How is the spread of APC chargers all over Germany? What are the companies driving it? How is the logic that to develop the APC charging infrastructure? It's not there's a search area. It's I have a contract with Rewe. Yeah, I have a contract with Tom. So of course I will build there where I have a contract. And so I think understanding the market is the right approach.
Daniel?
I may be too pragmatic for this one, but I think the question, what I understand is, what could be options to accelerate outside of tenders? And I think, if we are truly honest, many of us industry players are trying to get permits, trying to build, want to build. And this process, I think, would benefit from digitalization. Yeah, how about an online approval process, a permitting process that would speed up the whole process, whether it's in the public or in the private domain? I think that is something that could, certainly in this market, truly help to accelerate the journey of implementation. And that is an option that may help us outside of tenders also to accelerate the journey. Yeah, I think there will be a world of tenders and outside of tenders, and it's not on me to discuss and debate, but what I think is an opportunity for us is to focus on speed when it comes to implementation.
But this question is not about speed, it's about gaps. So the question is, will there be gaps and how to react?
No, there won't be gaps. I mean, you can already see that in the market. I mean, so, and what you also provided on your homepage, this dashboard, yeah, 10 to 15% average usage. I mean, it's not a sign for a real gap. It's a sign for that we have a lot of installed capacity. But one thing that flew into my mind, last legislation, we had a very good institution making it able for the market to transfer the insights of the market development to the government. This was the National Platform for Mobility. And it was a very good platform because there all the different market participants could discuss together and really come up with solutions. I think was quite helpful.
We have just a couple of minutes left, so why don't we see if we can get to one or two more questions from our audience. From Michael or Michael, if the mentioned demand is only there twice a year or just in an area where there's not that much traffic, who would take that places to build HPC charging parks for the typical peaks?
Okay, in his world, market will solve this problem. In my world, I say, okay, this is a hard business case, and we need to add the market with an approach, in my case, a tender, to build up these stations. This is another kind of business case. Tender is also part of the market.
Daniel is nodding. Did you want to add something?
I think the question is, how do you create demand, right? And in population. And I think that's indeed where, when a business model in itself is not weak, but there is a potential demand, there's always the opportunity to accelerate. Yeah, that's why funding programs are there. Why you see that these funding programs can work, especially when they are in sync. Yeah, when you would synchronize the car population and the charging infrastructure with your funding program, which is not necessarily always the case, but I think certainly something favorable. Then you can create the demand and make it a commercial business model that then will find a way where the market will fix itself. Yeah, and then, but I think one of the challenges that this industry is facing is that at the start the utilization is very low, so the investment barrier is high, and therefore I'm not in a position to advocate left or right here between these two gentlemen. But what I'm clear is it will probably need all of us to make this work.
I mean, first of all, it will be a mass market. Everybody knows that, so this is why the people are here and investing. So show me the area where the demand is only just once or twice a year. Yeah, it will be a mass market. This is the first thing. The second thing is, and we can sit here and try to figure out good solutions that the government maybe could provide by a tender. Sorry, Johannes. And in the meantime, I'm curious when it takes place. In the meantime, somebody very clever out in the market develops an Airbnb app just for charging. Yeah, and the demand suddenly is away.
But these Airbnb chargers have the same problem: demand twice a year. So I think you talk about mass market, but there's still, within the mass market, this case is still a hard business case.
Well,
don't earn a lot.
It's a thesis. I mean, just show me the area where they're only charging twice a year. It won't take place. And the one who offers this private wall box for anybody else already has his business case. It's an additional business case for him. So.
But I don't think if I go on the long haul, I will drive and charge in 30 minutes. I'm not interested in a wall box by Airbnb, to be honest. Talking about seasonal traffic, for example, in the Alp area, there we need stations that are, for the summer, are bigger than the need is in the winter. So but this is for the business case a problem. We have to accept this.
Gentlemen, there is clearly a lot to debate, but unfortunately our time is up. The debate can, of course, continue outside with some coffee to go along with it. Thank you so much for this really fruitful discussion. So, Daniel, Johannes, Jan, and Jörg, and thank you to our audience for some very provocative questions. It was a pleasure. Thank you.